So that's done and looks like this. Looking pretty cool. It has more dimension to it, which I think is what people like about these kind of gasoline explosions. Like if I look at here, here's frame 25 here. See how kind of flat it all is? It just feels flat. It's not wrong, again, necessarily, it just doesn't look as interesting. But this, you can really feel the shapes because of all the density on there. And again, we have all these dark spots that are riding along the surface. They'll live here and there. That's that, again, gasoline-y look. Now they're not all the way there yet, not by a long shot, but we are on the right path, as I keep saying. So that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna come back down here to our viewport. I'm gonna say, let's go to frame 27, because I think that's what we were just looking at. Or maybe I'll go back 25. Something to that effect. And I wanna talk about, perhaps first, maybe increasing this so we can make it a little bit brighter. Maybe I should have done that before rendering it too. It actually looks pretty cool. But more importantly, I wanted to say right now we're using the physical black body because that's what we've been talking about over and over again, of how great it is and what it does and how it's physically accurate. But like most physically accurate things, it kind of, loses some of its good qualities when it comes time to do something artistic, which is to say you can't alter it very easily. There is this idea of adaptation, which you can see will bring up some of the redder areas, meaning the lower parts of the range, or you can do burn, which will brighten some of the brighter parts of the range. So you have some control. But if you do ramp, you can literally just tell it what colors you want it to be. And here I'll just make it one color. For right now, if I just made it red, it looks like that, or green, or whatever. Now explosions tend to be orange. So let's start with orange. Now, why does it look yellow? Because, the color itself is being multiplied a lot, oopsies, by the intensity. So what ends up happening is that 1 is being multiplied by a huge number, so it's greater than 1. And then this 0.5 is being multiplied by a huge number, so that's greater than 1 too. So we end up with R and G being more than 1, which makes it just look yellow, because yellow is when you have maximum red and maximum green. If I added a little bit of blue in, it will turn white, or at least brighter, because now this number is being multiplied by something. When it's 0, it just stays 0, and it never gets to turn white, and that's a problem. So whatever color you end up choosing, if you wanted it to be green, you have to make sure that there's a little bit of something in these zeros that needs to be allowed to turn white in the hottest spots. Because, a large number times 0.1 will still eventually get up to 1. Now, we don't want it to be green. We'll make it orange. So I'm going to say, let's make it an orange that's not as green, but let's give it some of that blue that we're talking about. So I'm going to say 0.1 here. So immediately, this is actually looking quite nice. Perhaps it's too bright now, because it no longer fades back into black. Now, it's not actually going to always have a color everywhere just because there's no black at the end of this range. Because ultimately, the flame itself still fades out by virtue of the flame field not existing everywhere. But this is a really nice filmic look. These shades of orange becoming bright white, like that. Again, if we were to go back to our look here, it really depends. It depends on how the color is graded in your shot, by your camera, by your film, the film itself, by just arbitrary considerations. It really depends. But a lot of the most filmic look has a kind of this paler, washed out look. That said, we don't want to have it be maybe quite so pale. So let's bring some red back into it. So I'm going to move this to here. Let's have it become this color the brighter it gets. And down here, So we'll say when it's low down. So again, this is temperature. As it's hotter, it becomes this. As it's lower, it becomes this. Right now we're using one color for everything. And it still looks dynamic because again, ultimately, that this is being multiplied by the fire intensity itself. But so in any case, let's add some redness back into this. So if I come up here, just kind of moving it towards this side of things is probably, let's actually bring this down somewhat. And let's bring this down somewhat too. That's pretty red, but it has kind of like a nice pizza color. We can also do things like actually multiply the flame color itself. We can bring this up. Well, actually, that'll kind of do the opposite. By doing 0.5 here, it'll push us more towards this color because basically we're remapping the temperature range. Something like that. So we're still getting some nice reds in here, but it's moving towards white in the brightest areas. So as you might imagine, we need to see this in the render. So we had, I guess we should see, let's get a quick render of what it already looks like on frame 27, and then we'll render that and see what that looks like. So there. So that's what we're starting from. I mean, that's where we were starting from. This is what it became. And I'll take a screenshot of that. And let's kind of, again, copy this idea over to our material. So the material has a similar kind of setup where we can say do temperature to color ramp. Same idea. It's going to turn black and white in a minute here. But let's just start going to work. And I'm going to say grab this. So I'm going to copy that value to there, and I'm going to grab this value here, put it there, and there you go. And all of a sudden, it's starting to look really cool, isn't it? We went now from this to this. So we're getting more light in general, because again, we don't have black on the bottom here anymore. But we're also just getting a more interesting looking filmic look. This looks like this isn't wrong. And again, plenty of this kind of looks like that. But you see how there isn't that much red in this or in this, especially this one. I mean, this one might actually be CG already, but this one at least, same thing. It's just kind of shades of orange and white. It really just depends on what your film looks like, or if it's on a digital camera, what the color grade is. But this does start to just feel more like what people push it towards. And anyway, we just see more detail in here now. We can even push it further by taking, kind of how we did this here, by multiplying the temperature, it will push it further along this temperature range too. So it'll be further along towards just the orange side of things. So the more I multiply it here, the more it is becoming more like that kind of pale orange. We'll still have red ultimately lower down where values are quite low, but yeah, now we've got it really firmly in that kind of filmic pale orange look to it. All of this is arbitrary. None of this again is based off of real world physics. We literally threw physics out the window when we changed it from physical blackbody, but it's looking more interesting. So let's take a moment there. Maybe I'll bring this down. It might be a little too intense now. We're not seeing some of the detail that I might want to see. So there we go. Now I can see more detail in it. So that's cool too. So that's already a pretty big improvement though, wouldn't you say? From there to there. And this is where it was. From here to here. This just looks more, I don't know. I'll say for the 100th time this lesson, filmic. So let's do a full render of this now. Press stop. Go to out. The usual. I just keep rewriting over these files because I don't need the old ones anymore. You don't either.